Material you're going to need for a self-binding Quilt-As-You-Go placemat are as follows. So you're going to make your batting size the finished size of the placemat. And I did mine, so just so you know, it's 15 inches across, 15, by 13 inches tall. Now your backing fabric, so whatever you decide to do for your final size, for the size of your batting, because you don't have to do it the same size as mine, you do it square, do it whichever size you want. So whatever size you do, have at least 2 inches of your backing piece going all the way around your work. So have at least 2 inches all the way around. So that is what it's going to look like so far. And then the next thing you're going to need is your scrap pile and quite possibly an iron, because see how I store these? They're just like stuffed in. They're getting out of hand. I need to do some scrappy projects to get rid of all of this scrap fabric, and this is a perfect scrap fabric sewing tutorial. Self-binding means exactly what I am saying. We are going to be using this backing later on for the binding section, so everything will be done all as one. So Quilt-As-You-Go is basically exactly what it says. You're going to be placing pieces of random fabric on top of this batting, and then as we are sewing, we are going to be quilting the back side of it, and then we'll be later on using this as a self-binding method for a Quilt-As-You-Go placemat. I am not paid nor sponsored to create this video. I use a Baby Lock Soprano sewing machine. In my top thread, I am just going to have a regular white polyester thread. In my bobbin here, I am just going to have a regular white bobbin thread. My sewing needle is a 9014 Marketech sewing needle. I will be changing this foot out to, no I won't, I'll keep this foot on. I was going to change it to a 1/4 inch foot, but it may actually get in the way because of the quilt batting when we're quilting as we go. So I'm going to leave this foot on, which is the J foot, which is a regular straight stitch foot. And these are my settings on my machine, and I love that it tells me which foot to use, and I am using the J foot for a straight stitch. And I'm also going to put this pivot key on that'll raise my presser foot up and down automatically. I'll show you that as I'm doing it. Please bear in mind that this Quilt-As-You-Go method is really only going to work for squares and rectangle shapes. So any kind of like squares and strips kind of thing. So I have my first piece of fabric. I love this fabric. It's Raleigh Blake. I use it quite a lot. That's going to be my first fabric. It's going to be face up. And then this is my next piece of fabric, and it's going to be face down. I have kind of trimmed it to the length of this particular block just to make things easier. So I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch, attaching both of these fabrics together. So here we go. Let's sew this first section into place. Press a foot down, sew down. As soon as I stop, my presser foot will automatically raise and go back down when I press my foot accelerator. Okay, so that's the first part sewn. This is the first section. I'm going to open this up and I'm going to press. It's best to press as you go. There you go, it's nice and flat, and I'm going to turn this over. So as you can see, got loads of threads here. This is now stitched on the back as we are stitching on the front. So I'm going to snip them threads there. I'm going to turn it back over, and we're going to prep our next section. I just pulled out all of my favourite pieces of fabric. So I'm just going to put this here, and I'm going to kind of trim along here. Like so. And then this is going to be the next section here, and we are going to sew all the way along here. I'm going to turn it back. So here we go. We're going to push this back. We're going to press, and we're going to get our next piece of fabric ready. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm going to cut this. And then we're going to line this up and we're going to sew 1/4 inch here. We come back to our iron, we flip this section over and we press. So you decide how big or small sections that you want going around here. I might do a nice thin strip here now. So I have this piece of fabric which is the perfect size here. So now I'm just going to cut. You can do it with a pair of scissors, you can do it with a rotary cutter, it's up to you. And then I'm going to put these right sides together and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch. And here we go, this is the section we just did. I'm going to flip that back, press it down, and then as we're sewing the front, remember we are actually quilting the back. So just be careful of your threads at the back here, just give them a bit of a snip as you're going through. And this is the Quilt-As-You-Go method. As you are doing this Quilt-As-You-Go method, remember to reverse over your stitch at the start and at the end, just so they don't fall out. You're going to keep doing this until your entire batting section, which is the fluffy section, is all covered. Another thing that I did for my Quilt-As-You-Go placemat was I joined 2 other pieces of fabric up before attaching it to a longer section. So I sewed these 2 up and then sewed it along here, and then when I came to doing the next section on my placemat, I have a long enough piece of this scrap now to go next to here. So as you can see, I'm still getting that scrappy effect, even though I combined these 2 before I put it onto my blocks. If you are having trouble keeping that seam straight that is sewn onto the batting, don't worry, just keep moving this section up until you catch the 1/4 inch seam, and then you're just going to fold it back. Don't lose sleep over it, please. And let your pieces overhang the batting and we'll sort that out afterwards. So keep going with putting all of your sections onto the placemat. We now have the front of our Quilt-As-You-Go placemat all done at the front. The only thing that you may have to do is just go through and just clip off these loose threads here in between all of the seams here. And then at the back of the quilt, we are all quilted. I like how random it looks. And then you'll just have to go through and just snip off all of these loose threads too. So for the next part, you have the backing facing you and you're going to flip just the backing piece over, and then that will reveal how much you need to just cut off here. So we're just going to cut off this front section. And what you're going to do with a rotary cutter is you're just going to line your ruler up with the edge of the batting, and you are going to take off the excess there, and you're going to do that with all of your sides. So I'm just going to fold this back, and then if it has moved on you, the batting, and it doesn't appear to be straight, then just make it straight. I'm just going to line it up here to this line, and then just make it straight again. What I'm going to do next is this. I am going to line my ruler up to the edge of my quilt here, and I'm going to do it at 3/4 inch. I found doing this at 1 inch, it was too much of a fold over for me, so I am going to do it at 3/4 inch. So there you go. I'm going to do this all the way around my quilt, just taking off, so there's just going to be 3/4 left at the side here all the way round. So now we're going to do the self-binding of our Quilt-As-You-Go placemat. So what you're going to do, don't care where you do it, you're going to fold this section in half. So we're just hiding the raw seams, and I would recommend just pressing this and just going around the whole section and just folding each section in half. And I'm just pressing it nicely into place with an iron. So that's the first section all done, and then what you're going to do with the second section is you're going to fold it over onto the top of your placemat. And it's probably a good idea to get some wonder clips and just clip into place, and you're just going to go all the way around, clipping your self-binding binding into place. At this point in time, you can then just go through and hand stitch or machine stitch. It is totally up to you. There is no right or wrong way of doing this, and just attach that binding down. Here we go, guys. This is a Quilt-As-You-Go placemat that has self-binding on it. So as we are sewing the front, don't forget we have also quilted the back at the same time, and we also use the backing as our binding. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe. I have over 300 sewing and quilting tutorials. There is so many on my YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.